folks. Today I am going to be talking about our winter outlook, which was released this October. Earlier this week, the Climate Prediction Center, the CPC, put out the 90-day or 3-month outlook for the December, January, February period. Just as a friendly reminder, this outlook is not an indicator of daily weather events, but rather a summation of the entire season over that 90-day period. For that period, we have a slight chance for below normal temperatures and above normal precipitation. However, due to some fuzzy signals, some uncertainty in our driving patterns this winter, confidence is low at this time in this outlook. It does look like short-range weather patterns that play out on more of a scale of 1 to 3 weeks are going to play a bigger role for temperature and precipitation trends this season. Additionally, we've developed some drought, and the seasonal drought outlook does indicate that drought conditions are expected to persist through the winter season. Again, the seasonal outlook is only depicting the most likely outcome with the greatest confidence, but it may not be the only possible outcome. Taking a deeper dive into the temperature outlook, there's a 33 to 50% chance of below normal temperatures for most of the Northland. If we go into north central and northwest Minnesota, there's a slightly better chance, about 40 to 50% of those below normal temperatures. We can dive into a single point. We've used Duluth in the pie chart for this example to kind of break down where those probabilities are coming from. In these outlooks, there's actually 3 different categories. It's not just above or below. There's also a near normal category. So we can see here that we've got about a 39% chance in Duluth of those below normal temperatures, but also a 33% chance of near normal and even a 28% chance of above normal. So it's kind of a slim probability. This below normal temperature outlook is not forecasting how that could manifest. So we could see a really, really cold 2 to 3 week period in midwinter. It could just be a couple frequent bursts of cold air here and there. Overall, just slightly below normal temperatures, or it could be this kind of roller coaster that trends on the colder side, things like that. We don't know that outcome based on these outlooks. So it's just over that 3-month period, kind of how does the average shake out. For the precipitation, the entire Northland is in the same category of about 33 to 40% chance of above normal precipitation. But if we take a look at that pie chart, we are working with pretty slim margins here. So a 36% chance of above normal, but a 31% chance of below normal precipitation. So we only got about a 5% difference there between those two categories. Again, this is a slim margin for that above normal precip. And also, above normal precipitation does not necessarily equate to above normal snowfall, just talking about any kind of liquid that's falling out of the sky. When we cross it over with that below normal temperature, however, if that should actually manifest itself, that could mean that snow would be more likely. We will see snowstorms at some point somewhere in the Northland this winter, but this outlook does not tell us anything about the frequency, number, intensity of these events. Those are going to be predicted on a much shorter time scale than a seasonal one. I'm going to take a moment to get a little bit more technical and kind of break down why this outlook is the way it is and kind of why we have that really low confidence in this outlook as well. So you may be familiar or have heard of the La Nina, El Nino cycles, and then there's kind of a neutral phase in between those two cycles. This is a large-scale global pattern which is driven by actually ocean temperature anomalies in the Pacific Ocean, which affect our jet stream, or the overall atmospheric pattern that brings us storms or dry periods. What we are expecting for this winter is a La Nina, just a weak La Nina, which is expected to transition more into that neutral phase as we go into the late winter and early spring timeframe. So its strength is really uncertain with this La Nina. It makes this all a little bit more muddy, a little bit more unclear. We have about a 56% chance of a weak La Nina, but only an 18% chance of a moderate and only a 2% chance for a strong La Nina, which on the forecasting side of things is a little bit unfortunate because the stronger these signals are, the more confidence we have in forecasting what kind of weather patterns they will manifest. So the fact that we have a weak La Nina that's also going into that neutral phase means that the driving jet stream pattern in the background just isn't as strong, and it makes way for a lot more smaller scale, both in terms of space and time, that are going to play in and kind of affect our weather a lot more. So patterns that we can't predict this far out are going to be the main drivers behind snowfall and most likely temperature as well. It is worth noting that La Ninas, weak La Ninas for sure, but mostly all La Ninas have been highly variable in the Northland. So El Ninos tend to be a little bit more predictable than La Ninas do. I'm just going to take a look at a couple recent both weak La Ninas and neutral winters. So we really have no such thing as a typical or average one of these patterns for our area. We've been a little bit all over the place in terms of our precipitation departures and our temperature departures from average. We've seen dry winters, wet winters, cold winters, hot winters, both on top of each other. So we've kind of been a little bit all over the place. And this is just looking at the last 5 samples of each of these kinds of winters. Also notable is for weak La Ninas, we only have a sample size of 12 to compare to, and for neutral winters, we only have 24. So we're working with a really small sample size, and it's really hard to pull anything kind of statistically significant out of that. Like I mentioned before, precipitation does not necessarily equal snowfall, but to kind of reinforce the point from the last slide, there is no such thing as a typical weak La Nina pattern for our area, and even when we talk about that average or normal snowfall, it's made up of highly variable year-to-year amounts. So just kind of looking at some of the most recent similar winters for our area, our snowfall has been anywhere from pretty dang low, in only about the 20 to 40 inch range, to a lot closer to average or even slightly above average, more up towards the 80-inch seasonal snowfall. So again, highly variable kind of pattern that we're working for, which reinforces how uncertain this outlook is. Looking at the drought outlook, we have had drought developing more this fall across the area, and we don't have the confidence to say we're going to get enough precipitation to get rid of that. So improvements are not necessarily expected where drought has developed this fall. In summary, again, we have a slight chance for below normal temperatures and above normal precipitation, but that outlook is low confidence, and we're going to have a lot better confidence on shorter timescales this winter. So things like 1 to 3 weeks out when we're seeing pattern shifts in temperature and precipitation, that's what we're going to have better confidence in, and we will try to message that where we can. We are expecting a weak La Nina to continue into early this winter and then transition into a neutral phase by late winter. And those La Ninas can be highly variable for temperature and precipitation, adding on to that uncertainty. So we're not able to predict any kind of exact timing, intensity, frequency of winter weather events in these outlooks. We're just looking at an overall kind of average. Again, that seasonal drought outlook does indicate that drought conditions could persist through this winter because we just don't have enough confidence for high enough precipitation to say, yep, we're going to be able to bust that drought. We could have a drier winter or just a normal winter that would either prolong or exacerbate drought. And we have shown you a couple analogs here and there in this presentation, but that does not make a forecast. That's just taking a look at what has happened in the past. It doesn't necessarily say what's going to happen in the future. The next winter outlook will be issued on Thursday, November 20th. So in that late November timeframe, if things have significantly changed or our confidence is different, we might put out an update then. Just as one last push, we are encouraging folks to kind of help us verify this outlook in the sense of if you would like to observe precipitation or snowfall, you are more than welcome to actually become an official data point for the Weather Service. So that is done through the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network, also known as COCORAS, which provides data that meets data quality standards such that the Weather Service can use it, as well as a bunch of other folks. And that ground truth observation is crucial for meteorologists and hydrologists to hopefully lead to better forecasts. If you are interested in this program, you can check out more at cocoras.org. That is all I've got for you today. Please don't hesitate to contact our office if you have any questions. Thanks.